welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be 2 looks with the Lethal Cosmetics Midnight Serenade palette. I put up a poll on all the new eyeshadow palettes that I've gotten recently, and this was the one that you all chose that you wanted to see first. So in today's video, like I said, I'm going to be doing 2 looks. We're going to be going over details of this palette, inserting in some swatches, and then just giving my first impression thoughts. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love it if you stuck around. But with all that out of the way, let's just get started talking about this palette. All right, I don't like to dwell on this part too long, but here is what the Lethal Cosmetics Midnight Serenade palette looks like. It does come with a sleeve and it retails for $49. I don't think that's too bad of a price. I did realize while prepping for this video that I didn't use a code, and there are tons of code out there. So don't be like me, make sure you use some kind of code to get some money off. But here is what the inside of the palette looks like. I instantly fell in love with this. There's something about this that just speaks to me. It's neutral, but something different. It's teetering on the edge of too dark for me. I mean, we're gonna wait and see. This is a first impression, so I have not tried this palette yet, but I really, really like this for Lethal. It's something I feel is a little bit different. Now, this does contain 8 mattes and 7 shimmers, which is almost a half and half split. I do like that in my palettes. And it has 2 metallics, 2 duochromes, and 3 triochromes. Now, I'm not 100% sure here, but I'm pretty sure these 2 are the duochromes, and the metallics are this bronzy shade as well as this purple. And then I believe this is a triochrome. The duochromes and triochromes, I'm not sure, but I do know that this is a metallic and this is a metallic. I'm going to insert up my swatch photo here so you can take a look at all the colors just side by side of this palette. Now, I do have to say that when swatching out this palette, I've tried to start swatching my palettes before sitting down to film to get an idea of maybe what I want to do, be less surprised when I do my looks. I was a little bit surprised by how similar some of these plummy mattes look. Specifically, I think that these 2 shades here look very, very similar, and these 2 shades here also look very similar. So I don't know how I feel about that. You know, they do look different in the pan, but on the eye and just by my swatch, I don't know how much of a difference we're going to see. So I do wish that maybe we had a lighter matte to maybe blend out a little bit other than just this one here, which for me and my skin tone, this is going to show up still like a medium kind of peachy shade on me. So that's really my only critique of the palette looking at it now. That's not true. I have 2 critiques. My second critique is that it doesn't say the name of the palette anywhere on the box. I've looked and I've looked. It only has it on the sleeve, and it's very small on the back here where the ingredients are, which is unfortunate because usually I like to toss these, quite honestly. I try not to keep too much clutter, but I am going to have to keep the sleeve because I'm worried that I just won't remember the name of this palette. I have too many palettes in my collection to remember what this is called. So those are really my 2 only cons. I wish that they had put the name of the palette maybe here, but this is their first kind of traditional palette where you can't pop the shades out, can't do anything like that. Usually Lethal's known for having very interchangeable shades where you can kind of switch the palettes around. And I will link any videos I've done on Lethal Cosmetics up above and in the description box, as well as all the makeup that I'm wearing today. But this is their first palette like that, so I am giving them a slight pass. But other than that, I think that's all I really have to say about this. So now I'm gonna scoot you in a little bit closer, and we're gonna do 1 look on each eye, just see what I think of the formula, and hopefully it's the same great Lethal Cosmetics formula that I know and love. So there are about a million looks I could do with this. And I'm struggling to decide which 2 I want to do on camera today because I do want to try out these mattes and just see how similar they are. But I really want to try this Tempest shade. And these two are kind of like toppers. I'll definitely probably just use this in the inner corner. I really want to use this, but do I use this with it? Like these three? Okay, I'll use this, this, and this, probably some of this for the first look. And then for the second look, we'll decide that after. Let's just get started with the first one. I'm gonna start with the Requiem shade. It's kind of like a dark tealy, mossy, a mossy teal, I guess. I'm going to be using fluffier brushes only because these are darker shadows and I don't want them too dark right off the bat. And I haven't primed my eyes. I only used my concealer and then I set it with powder. There's no traditional eye primer on my lids. And in the past, my experience with Lethal is that I really, really enjoy their mattes, and their shimmers are not the easiest to work with. They're beautiful shimmers, but I will say out of a lot of indie brands that I've tried, they are one of the more flakier shimmers. So I probably made a mistake today by applying my base makeup first. But we're just gonna see how much fallout there is. I will use a glitter primer just to hopefully stop some of that fallout. But that's just my experience in the past. We'll see what their shimmers do today. So I kind of want to apply a little bit more of this just on the outer corner. And to be honest, you know, when there's like special indie shades, I don't necessarily love going in with a ton of mattes because I really just want this to be the background to the shimmer, especially, yeah, when they're just stunning shimmers. I don't want to be wasting my time with blending mattes, so I'm not gonna do that. This is blending beautifully. It's one of my favorite things about Lethal is their mattes are just so buildable and versatile. Like this is not as dark as I was expecting. It's really just a wash of color. Granted, that's partly due to the brush that I'm using. If you're using a denser brush, it's gonna show up darker, but you can kind of manipulate it how you want. And then I'm gonna go in with a smaller brush into Haven, which is just that deep, dark matte brown. And I'm gonna apply that to the outer corner to add some depth. See how that builds on top of it. It's interesting to me because I kind of view this as a neutral palette. And I think that traditionally we think of neutral palettes as being a lot of browns, different shades of brown. And this only has one, maybe two browns. I really think that lighter matte is more peachy in my opinion. So I think that that's kind of cool and interesting. Like it's just, you know, a different way we can see neutral palettes, but it doesn't have to be all browns. I like that a lot. Okay, so that's kind of how I just want to keep this because I do want to go in with Tempest, and it's definitely one of those shifties, whether it's duo or trio, I'm not sure. But first let's go in with my NYX glitter primer. Hopefully we won't get too much fallout. I am going to use my finger for Tempest because that's just what I like to do. My nails aren't too long. And if I need to go in and perfect it with a brush, I will. But typically I can kind of reach into that inner corner, and I'm going to be using that Starlit shade anyways on the inner corner. So I'm not too concerned. I freaking love this shade. It's just like a purple to teal shift. Stunning. Yep. Going into Starlit on the inner corner. And there is right now no fallout because I use the glitter glue, so that is nice to know. I kind of like to just bring it up here just to open my eye. A little bit more there because I do kind of have like naturally just smaller eyes. That's what we have so far. Going into the lower lash line, first I'm gonna go back in with that brown, actually, Haven, and just kind of replace that. And then I'm gonna take the same brush, just gently, gently apply that to the outer corner. And connect it. That way now I can take Requiem on a fluffy pencil brush and just run that all over the lower lash line. For the sake of the video, I'm going to take Obsidian, which is the black in the palette, and I'm gonna line my top lash line. This black, I had to really build on my swatch. I think I had to run over it like 3 times, which is not a bad thing. I much more prefer a buildable black because I am intimidated by blacks than just a straight off the back black. If I want that, I can go in with a liner. If it's a powder shadow, I want it to be buildable. I'm just gonna kind of run this just like that. And I think that's all I'm gonna do for this look. I will add some black liner and mascara after I do the second look, but I'll let you know what I do after we're done here. So here is the first look so far. 3 shades, 2 mattes, 1 shimmer, and I think it looks really pretty and impactful. I quite like it. I don't have too many shimmer shades, and I can't just like off the top of my head think of a shade that I have like this Tempest, so I'm very, very happy with that. Now for look number 2, like I said, I want to use some of these mattes. So I think I'm going to use these 2 here. I'll probably use this to blend it out. And I'm thinking that I'm going to use this bronzy metallic and maybe top it with this because it is a little bit sheer, more iridescent, to kind of maybe just like spotlight this over this to bring the pink back in. That's my plan right now. We'll see how that goes. So, you know, it's hard to see which one's lighter, which one's darker. One of them's really just like a warm mulberry shade and one's more of a cool mulberry. I don't know, it's a little bit redundant for me, but let's just give it a shot. Make sure. Definitely more pigmented off the bat than that last matte that I used. I changed my mind. I want to go with the ones that I thought were too similar. So I went in with Omen, which was this one. And now I'm going to go into Blood Moon because these looked very similar in my swatch where these 2 look similar, just to see. So going into Blood Moon to deepen up the outer corner. Definitely actually not the same on the lid. So that makes me happy. I'm surprised they're much different than I was expecting. Okay. I think I'm gonna run Hypnotic on the lower lash line. And this is one of the other purples in there. And it is subtle, but it is different from my crease shade. It's definitely more of a cool tone plum. I'm just taking a brush with no additional product to diffuse it a little bit. Going in with my NYX glitter primer here before I go in with that bronzy shade, which is Obscura. Yeah, it's really pretty. Apply that all over the lid, and we're gonna put something on top of that, I think. And since this shimmer, this metallic isn't like matchy-matchy, I am going to just kind of diffuse the edges here a little bit. just to kind of give it like more of a fade rather than this one like was a little bit matchy. So I could get away with just applying the shimmer. Now I'm going to take Continuum to Spotlight, and I'm going to use this shade, which is Enchantress, on the inner corner, just so that way I tried as many shimmers as possible. And this Continuum kind of has a pink shift to it anyways. Just so we have a little bit more shiftiness to it. You see it? Adds just a little bit something extra. And going into Enchantress to bring in some extra pink. This Enchantress shade I have to use again all over the lid next time. It is so beautiful. Okay, I'm really liking how both of these turned out. I kind of am leaning more towards the Tempest shimmer. But the last thing I'm gonna do is line with Velvet. That's the last purple in this little quad here. And that way I can say I tried all the purples. So we're just gonna line. And that's it for the second look. So here are both looks. I'm gonna go finish up the rest of my makeup. Here we are, the final two looks. So here is look number 1 and look number 2. I actually quite like both of these, but I'm now gonna scoot you out and we're gonna talk about it. Now that these looks have both had time to settle, there is a little bit of fallout. It's not an extreme amount like I've had with past lethal palettes, but it's a notable amount where I would just say do your eye makeup before your foundation. And that's on par with other lethal palettes. The glitter glue does help kind of negate that a little bit, but not enough where I would say you could do your base first. As far as the palette goes, you know, I haven't tried too many lethal palettes. I think I've tried 4. I guess that's a decent amount. 2 of the charity quads that they came out with this year, as well as the Wildflower and the Nightflower. Like I said, both of those will be listed down below. And while I've only tried this palette today and did 2 looks, this might be my favorite lethal palette. The mattes are just the great mattes that I'm used to, same as the other lethal mattes. They really start light and build up. They're very versatile and beginner friendly, in my opinion, if you're looking for good indie mattes. The shimmers, I've already mentioned this, but I don't think that they're the same level as some other indie shimmers. They're just a little bit more flaky, and some people like that because that flakiness is really gonna create some 3D dimension and just add a whole nother layer of sparkle on your eye. But for me, like, I don't know if it's worth the messiness. I will say though that the shimmers are beautiful. I like both looks that I came up with. I really have nothing bad to say about this palette. I like it a lot. It's just very, very lovely. Even the shades being darker than I'm used to in a palette, because the mattes are so easy to work with, like even someone like myself, who I don't consider myself very good at doing my eyeshadow. I would probably say that's like my least skilled aspect as far as my makeup. Like, I feel like I was able to easily work with these mattes and make them lighter than I wanted and not show up true to pan. I'm just overall like excited to play with this palette again. That doesn't happen with every single palette. You know, like I said, I can't wait to use this shade here specifically, like so stunning. Like I mentioned in my intro, I was a little bit worried about these 4 mattes here being a little bit too similar when I swatched them out, but I would say that they're different enough on the lid that you can see a distinct difference. I don't know if they're all still necessary in the palette, but I will say they weren't as similar as I was expecting them to be on the eye. I mean, this is a good one. This is a good one. If you're considering picking it up, I would highly recommend it. I do wish that Lethal stuck with their thing of having removable pans. A lot of indie brands are going into that where they have like the little hole you can kind of pull out the shades. Even if they had the palette laid out like this, but the shades weren't glued in and you could switch them around, I would much prefer that just so I could continue to mix and match with my other Lethal palettes. However, that doesn't seem to be the direction that they're going in. It's okay. I mean, I really realistically, I'm not going to do that anyways, but it would be nice to kind of have that option because I'm used to that with Lethal. Other than that, like, I don't want to drag this on and on and on. This was a really good one. I'm glad that you guys all voted for this one to be tried first. I might put up another poll again on my community tab to see which one you want me to do next. But personally for me, I think that I'm most excited to do the What's Up Beauty Dragon Eye palette. And that's just like personal taste, but I don't know. You'll have to let me know down below. I'm going to be posting my Black Friday haul after this video, I think. So you should be seeing a haul video of all the things I bought in November, which was a lot, coming up soon. And then in that video, you can let me know which palettes you want me to prioritize. Other than that though, that's where I'm gonna leave you. Definitely recommend this palette. I don't have a code, but there are codes just floating around everywhere for some money off if you decide to pick it up. Let me know down below what you thought of my looks. While they were kind of simple, basic, I didn't use too many shades. I think they turned out pretty decent, so I'm happy about that. Let me know if you plan on picking up this palette or if it's not your style at all and it's just an easy pass for you. But this is where I'm gonna leave you all. I hope you're having a good one and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.